District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter, Judge Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court. My name is Chris Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law. There's 61 documents in here. 61. And the number you will comply with is 0, because corruption is predictable. And you're drenched in corruption. So this is UPS, United Parcel Service, where I have a box in Rochester, New York. A box is 361. I'm going to show this again. I'm not asking you when my language is in the form of a question in these Freedom of Information Law documents. I'm telling you to send it to me. It's just in the form of a question, because there's no other way to say, what are the names of my prosecutors? Except, what are the names of my prosecutors? So, this here is UPS. This is who it was sent to today. This is how I track it right here. That tracks it. This went to Trinity Ross, United States Attorney in Buffalo. So that's where she's based. What I'm going to read will arrive in your office, I think tomorrow. I'm told tomorrow, but it could be 48 hours. Sandra Doorley, 47 South Fitzhugh. Todd Baxter, 130 South Plymouth Avenue. Mark Phillips, thank you, Mark, for your representation. You and Regina Harper in Monterey Public Defender's Office. And I'll see you again, Mark, because Psychopaths Incorporated will concoct another lie, another fiction for me, and I'll be in jail for the 7th time where a prosecutor doesn't talk in court. This is going to Alex Renzi. Who knows the prosecutor doesn't talk in New York State Supreme Court? He received this. I'd like to know what he's going to think when he sees what I'm demanding of him, and I'm going to read it, and he will refuse because he's corrupt. This is Paula C. Metzler, bald-headed, skin-headed widow. Send me a list of defendants. I'm going to hold up an envelope. That's not a list of defendants. And when I contact the United States Department of Justice, Attorney General Merrick Garland, and Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Kristen Clark, I'm going to say to each that you in Penfield Town Court, Paul C. Metzler and James Young Jr. refusing to provide me with a list of defendants when it's a public proceeding, and your entire repulsive, nauseating, sick existence is tax dollars, $28,000, Paul C. Metzler, $34,000, James Young Jr. And then this is Trinity Ross again. So the reason why she's on here twice, offices in Buffalo and Rochester. And what the United States Attorney is going to receive is this document here. And then I hope to contact her within the next week. But since it's the Christmas season, I'm not quite sure, and I have not decided yet what I'm going to do because people are busy given this epic holiday. So the first one here is different, and there are other ones that are different. I'm driven to Livingston County Jail. And how did I arrive in Livingston County Jail, Paul C. Metzler? I'm in Livingston County Jail because of two people. Paul C. Metzler, a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee with the last name Siemens. I go to the Penfield Public Library. I don't know I'm supposed to be in court because $28,000 bald-headed widow Paul C. Metzler is one person in Penfield Town Court decides I should be in jail. How is this possibly constitutional? I sit down at the terminal because when I'm at the Penfield Public Library, I'm using the scanner. And on this day, I'm going to do what I always do, which is scan documents to my Gmail. I stand up when I see two Monroe County Sheriff Office employees walking toward me. One of them was with the last name Siemens, who I've had confrontations with him repeatedly because he's a psychopath, Todd Baxter, and you employ psychopaths. I stand up. Siemens begins to run at me. He holds his arm out like this, clotheslines me. I fall down. My head slams against the ceramic tile. And the other psychopath had seen us kick me when I was on the ground. They pick me up frog marched me out of the library, down the hall to Penfield Town Court, and this bald-headed, skin-headed widow, $28,000 Paul C. Metzler, is waiting for me. She declares me guilty of something, and what is it? Because I don't know. And then I'm driven to Livingston County Jail in Geneseo, where Regina Harper, the Monroe County Public Defender's Office, had to win my release and my freedom. Monroe County Public Defender's Office is really a public service to the people of Monroe County, because it's for citizens that do not have the money for defense. And I was such a citizen, and I'm moving toward a point in my life right now where this is never going to happen to me again. And if I need representation, I can be able to afford it. And there are any number of reasons why I couldn't afford it. And some of those reasons is my fault. But the driving force reason why I required assistance from the Public Defender's Office, because I really had no money, is I've been in jail 6 times, and 6 times the prosecutor has to talk to court. And every time either Mark Phillips or Regina Harper has to win my release. It really is a terrific, dedicated organization where every single government institution or government bureaucracy should be just like the Monroe County Public Defender's Office. You know why? Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley? Because you have enormous power at the Sheriff's Office and District Attorney's Office with those psychopaths and criminals and sociopaths that you employ. And this is really a relatively small office with extremely limited resources. And it's understandable if they just do not have those resources to provide a defense against you, Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley, because what you can do is just concoct criminal charges, and you can force people into pleas and do other things where you really are placing the Public Defender's Office in a position where it's almost indefensible, given the enormous power that you have at the District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office. And I believe I would say this about any Public Defender's Office. I think that the Public Defender's Office in New York City is the same way, because of the enormous power of the 5 district attorneys in the city and the NYPD. It has nothing to do with the individuals in the Monroe County Public Defender's Office. It has to do with the power of a district attorney and a sheriff to destroy a life with just one judge when a prosecutor doesn't have to talk to court, which happened to me 6 times. So when I walked into that Penfield Public Library, why do you think I had this check tied back? Because I didn't cash it. That's for $61.39. That's what I had in my pocket. When your fellow psychopath, Todd Baxter, Siemens, clotheslined me, knocked me down, this is what I had in my pocket. And then when I left Livingston County Jail, I had to out-process at Monroe County Jail, and your office provided me this check. This is the price of violence, Todd Baxter. This is the price of your violence. And then I saw Siemens again when you arrested me for double jeopardy on Penfield Road. Do you even know what I'm talking about, you skinheaded stooge, party switcher? I am the very definition of double jeopardy, because I leave my residence at 26 Sanders Farm Drive, $85,000 Don Benedetto and his fellow psychopath, the last name Houlihan, come running at me at midnight. I turn around, I run away. Pay attention to that back. So I said this to you over and over now on this Google product that is YouTube. I never stop running. Benedetto and Houlihan are running at me. I turn around. I grab a hammer next to my porch. I run up the first step of the back porch. Houlihan grabs my arm. The hammer goes up. I pull away and run through the sliding glass door. I never stopped running. And then Houlihan went back to Jonestown at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, claimed and lied and said I swung a hammer at him. And that's how he concocts attempted felony assault, for which I was indicted by Michelle Crowley of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. When I don't know, the grand jury's convened. Michelle Crowley, as I said now repeatedly, why don't you call me to the grand jury? How many grand jurors are there? What was the vote of the grand jury? And most important, Michelle Crowley, are there minutes to it? There better be minutes of a grand jury that indicts me. I think you refuse to provide all that information to me. You refuse to answer all those questions. Do you know why, Michelle Crowley? Because you're corrupt. So I'll have that. And then this is my little guy. People refer to the dogs in different ways, and he's a Shih Tzu. And I always said he's my little guy. I used to say our little guy, because the reason why I used to say our little guy is when I lived in Webster in 2012, my ex-girlfriend, Laura Riley, we decided to adopt a dog. And we went to Lollipop Farm Humane Society in Fairport. And they are saints. And I've said this before, so I'm just going to be brief about this because it's why I refer to you at the Sheriff's Office, Psychopaths Incorporated. One of the questions Laura and I are asked, 2012, is, have you ever been arrested? The answer is no. The answer is yes. We cannot adopt a dog. And I believe I will not be able to adopt a dog from any society in the United States of America, given what you've done to me. So, we're asked if we've been arrested. And the answer is no, and that's why we approved. And his name was Alex. And when I was a United States Senate staffer, I worked with Alex Heck, who sat behind me in the Russell Senate office building. And I said to Laura, there's no way our dog is going to be named after someone I used to work with. And since I've been a boxing fan my whole life, since I was 7 years old, one of my favorite fighters is Ray Mancini, otherwise known as Boom Boom, and I am unconventional. And since he's the champion, I named him Boom Boom. So I'm walking my dog for 7 years and 4,000 plus times on land behind my residence that has no ownership. When Dr. Gloria Nichols was my dentist at 2033 Penfield Road, she's not calling the police, the sheriff's office, to come and seize my dog. Dr. Nichols moves her practice down Penfield Road. These two parasites, Neeraj Shah and Layla Kumar Shah, a 50-year-old man who lives with a 70-year-old mother, move in. This leads to the arrest warrant for me walking through the parking lot that I've walked for 4,000 times because of $67,000 Shannon Meyer. And I would not be surprised if you have not fired her, despite everything I've said about her in registered mail return receipt to your office and on this Google product, this YouTube, because you're the Blue Wall Sound, Todd Baxter. So Neeraj and Layla Kumar Shah, who you unleash upon me, think the fanatical cop should come to home and his citizen sees it's his dog. A woman is screaming at me from the back window. I don't know what that is. I bring my little guy in. I go through the parking lot. I enter the Shah law firm. And Neeraj Shah and Layla Kumar Shah refuse to talk to me. An hour later, there's a familiar pounding on my door, and it's two of your cretins, Todd Baxter, from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office with Penfield Animal Control. Nobody calls me. There you are at my door. This is why people hate the cops, you fucking skinhead. This is why people today in the United States of America in 2022 have a hatred for the police that I've never seen before in my life. And there was this vicious confrontation at my front door where you're two psychopaths, Todd Baxter, demanding my little guy. And I said to each, you'll have to kill me to take my little guy from me, which is the way dog owners are. And they left. Why don't you just pick up the phone and call me and say, we have a complaint about you walking dogs, so let's talk about that. Because that would be the way to do it civilly. But there is no civility at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Todd Baxter, how do you possibly explain this in the 1,000 pages I'm going to send to the United States Department of Justice? I could have 5,000 words alone on what you did to me just on this one day and what led to this one day. How is this explained? And my neighbor watched this. It came right over to me right after Psychopaths Incorporated left and said I saw that whole thing. And my neighbor and I talked about this. Are you confused why I use this term, Psychopaths Incorporated? Because you shouldn't be. At all. Ever. And today, on this December 20th, Patrick's printing on East Main Street, $80.15. And I think this is the most yet. This is on December 16th. It was $79.57. All these receipts here are for the printing I'm doing for the Freedom of Information Law. I think there's $500 worth of printing in here. The other thing I want to tell you, a thing, is I don't go out at night. It's right now 8:45 p.m. There's no way I'm going outside of this loft I live in, which is right next to the Trans Center. And this is a prepaid Visa card, which I load onto my phone. I think there's $50 on here. And they bring it to me. Food, beverages, or anything else I need. Because I'm not going outside in Rochester, New York at this time of night. And I've talked to people that live in my building, and there are others that don't go outside at certain times. Not like me. Everybody's different. But everybody I talk to, there is agreement about the violence in Rochester, New York, when it's dark out. And what do you think about that, Sandra, Doorley, Todd, Baxter? I'm going to tell you what you think about that. You're thinking that's just Mayor Malik Evans, that's the city of Rochester, that's the city police, and that's not us, the district attorney's office and sheriff's office, which is laughable, which is ludicrous. And you are laughable and ludicrous, in addition to being corrupt. So, now, this today went to the two I sent, Defiance again, on your emails. Here's all the emails for Psychopaths Incorporated. Here. It says, comply with the attached PDF dated December 18, 2022. That's 58 Freedom of Information Law documents. Now, when I put this in Gmail, send it to you, it's going to be the latest number, which I have to double check it again, which is 61. So this was 58. Now it's going to be 61. This is going to say on September 30th, comply with the attached PDF dated December 20th, 2022. That is 61 Freedom of Information documents, and you will sign for this documentation, which you will. What I'd like you to answer is, how do you look at this document, especially the first one I'm going to read, which is no, and just decide you're not going to comply? It's because you're corrupt. When I was released from Livingston County Jail, because Regina Harper, the Monroe County Public Defender's Office, won my release, I arrived home and my Chromebook was taken out of my residence by $91,000 fat girl, Lee LaRoque, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, because of a quote, end quote, search warrant by $28,000 Paul C. Metzler. Paul C. Metzler, what's the probable cause for Lee LaRoque to seize my Chromebook? And where is my Chromebook? $28,000 bald-headed, skin-headed Paul C. Metzler and $91,000 fat girl, Lee LaRoque. Where is it? Lee LaRoque, mail my Chromebook to this address, which I'm going to repeat multiple times. 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, 14604. I will tell Attorney General Merrick Garland, even though I just stated this here on this Google product as YouTube, I'm going to write this down and you'll sign for it. How do you answer the United States Department of Justice and its employees, Lee LaRoque, when I say that you're in my residence, which is a document that's laughable and ludicrous, it's not a search warrant, because there's no probable cause, that's why. And then you're removing my Chromebook from my residence, and when I say, where is it, and give it back to me, and you can't locate it, or you refuse to return it to me. How's that answered, $91,000 fat girl, Lee LaRoque? You know why I use that term to describe you? Because it's an absolute disgrace, your weight problems, because I've seen photographs of you. Why are you overweight? I'm going to get to in the Freedom of Information Law. I'm not using this language just to attack you personally. I'm using this language in the most direct way to call you fat, because there are no physical training standards at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And it's acceptable to Sheriff Todd Baxter that you're 40 pounds overweight, at least 40 pounds overweight. Have you had to buy a new uniform because of a weight gain? Because that happens at the Sheriff's Office. There are employees that continue to gain weight and they need a uniform that's going to be a 44 waist or a 46 or a 48 or a 50. You know who's overweight at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? $91,000 fat girl, Lee LaRoque. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. So send my Chromebook. I repeat certain things because corruption requires repetition. And you $91,000 fat girl, Lee LaRoque, can walk through this parking lot without being arrested. Why is that? A warrant for my arrest for walking through a parking lot I've walked through 4,000 times. Am I New York's 4,000-time criminal? How's that explained, Todd Baxter? I've said to you now repeatedly, so I'm going to say it again. Call $67,000 Shannon Meyer into your office and ask her why she wrote a warrant for my arrest for walking through this parking lot, but not anybody else in Penfield, New York. After I got home from Monroe County Jail the first time, where you showed me the video of me for the first time from 2025 Penfield Road, which is a camera, also called a surveillance device, where the accusatory instrument for me is walked through the parking lot by Nayra Shah and Layla Kumar Shah, for which I was arrested. That's why I was in Monroe County Jail, for walking through his parking lot. And every single day, beginning at 7 a.m. until midnight, people walk through this parking lot. Do you know why, Todd Baxter? Because I could see them from my second floor bedroom window and my first floor sliding glass door. And at the kitchen, at the sink, I could see people entering the parking lot. And so when I'm seeing these people enter and exit the parking lot, walk through the parking lot, I'm thinking I'm the only citizen of 36,000 in Penfield, New York, to be arrested for walking through this parking lot. I'm the only New Yorker out of 17 million to be arrested for walking through this parking lot. And this is the lunatic fringe who have not fired this freak that is $67,000 Shannon Meyer, because you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, love to surround yourself with freaks, because you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, are a freak. This is the Freedom of Information Law. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. The documentation signed by $28,000 Paul C. Metzler, that is a search warrant to allow $91,000 Lee LaRoque of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to enter 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penfield, New York, for the confiscation of the Acer Chromebook owned by Christopher Chichester at the residence. Does this need clarification for you, you skinhead widow, Paul C. Metzler? It's as clear as it can be. It's arriving via UPS in the next 24 hours. It'll definitely get there in 48 hours. And send the documentation to 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. And you refuse. And I want to contact the United States Department of Justice and the United States Attorney for Western District of New York, Trinity Ross, in Buffalo and in Rochester. I'll say that you're refusing. What's the probable cause to seize my Chromebook, Paul C. Metzler? What's the probable cause to seize my Chromebook, $91,000 fat girl Lee LaRoque? Answer this question, Todd Baxter. It's as simple as it gets, and you refuse. This is why you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. The total number of sick days used by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter from January 22 to December 20, 2022, which is today. You don't think you're accountable to anyone, isn't that right? You don't think you have to answer this question. Do you never get sick? Todd K. Baxter, is that your answer? What's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days used by District Attorney Sandra Doorley from January 2022 to December 20, 2022. You, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, different than Sheriff Todd Baxter. Because Sheriff Todd Baxter, as far as I know, and everything I've seen online and in the media, doesn't use his health to generate sympathy and score political points. I don't care that you're a cancer survivor. I don't care anything about your health. And when you want to use your health to generate sympathy and political support in Rochester, New York, and Monroe County, someone like me will question if the radical decline of your health prevents you from doing your job. And the radical decline of your health prevents you from doing your job because you have to form what's called the Conviction Integrity Unit, because innocent citizens are jail when your fanatical, corrupt prosecutors don't talk in court, like me. Do you have minors on the payroll at the Sheriff's Office and District Attorney's Office? I'm writing language here that I hope is going to enrage the citizens of Monroe County if, in fact, the answer is what I believe the answer is, which is yes. Because on the last page of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office payroll, there are approximately 15, quote, employees, end quote, that are paid $10,000 to $12,000. One, that's not a full-time Sheriff's Office employee. And two, since that's not a full-time Sheriff's Office employee, that person doesn't have a weapon, that person's not in a uniform. And since some of them have the same last name, like Camille Miller of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee, she's paid $34,000. Are these the children of your employees? And are you using the children of your employees to increase the salary of your employees? What's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. The number of minors on the public only payroll of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. There are minors on the payroll, and then there are minors on the payroll that are related to Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees. The number of minors on the public only payroll of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office who are related to Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees. Existing at Stone Cold Silence, corruption, Todd Baxter defines you. Same thing for the District Attorney's Office. The number of minors on the public only payroll of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Perry Duckles, the de facto District Attorney of Monroe County. What's the answer? You know the answer. Is your answer, we have no minors? Every single employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, legal voting age of 18. This is why I'm going to encourage Comptroller Thomas P. DiNapoli, the Alfred E. Smith Building in Albany, New York, to demand of you, because you're not going to answer me. Freedom of Information Law. The The number of minors on the public-only payroll of the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office who are related to Monmouth County District Attorney's Office employees. So, nepotism enrages voters, enrages the franchise. I would see this all the time when I worked in Albany for the majority leading governor. Less so in Washington, D.C. It is more professional in the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate than it is in the Assembly Senate in Albany. I had a friend of mine who worked for New York State Senator Surfin Maltese. And he would tell me about the individuals in his office that were related to his boss, the state senator from Queens. And it was a disgrace, what he would tell me. This is the Conviction Integrity Unit. For you to form a Conviction Integrity Unit, there is paperwork. This is a bureaucracy within the district attorney's office. And I believe that this is just your ridiculous and gratuitous public relations, where you know innocent citizens in jail and you have to come up with a contraption. And this is Sandra Doorley's contraption. So, Freedom of Information Law. The documentation signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley to create a, quote, Conviction Integrity Unit, end quote, within the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office. I'm right now in the process of finding out if the public meetings law in New York applies to this, because if it met, then that's a public meeting, and then are there minutes to it? And I'm going to get the minutes about you, Michelle Crowley, and that grand jury. There better be minutes of the grand jury that indicted me when I don't know the grand jury's convened. How do you answer if there's no documentation whatsoever, there's no minutes, and you refuse to tell me the names of the grand jurors and when the grand jury was convened? How's that answered, Michelle Crowley? It can't be answered. Corruption will remain silent. And you, Michelle Crowley, are corruption. So, Freedom of Information Law. The minutes of every Conviction Integrity Unit meeting at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. If it meets, there should be minutes. There should be a record of it. Does it meet? What happens if it hasn't met at all? Because on your website, the language is claims of innocence. I don't have a claim of innocence. I am innocent. But I'm going to submit documentation for you to review my case. If you're confused about what I'm demanding of you or anything I'm saying in here, if you want to correct me, this is where you contact me, Michelle Crowley, and Leah LaRoque. And where's my Chromebook? 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. This is your behind the badge. You have a podcast where you sit down in front of a microphone talking about the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Todd Baxter. If you have a podcast, then you have a producer, and this costs taxpayer hours. That's why I wrote this Freedom of Information Law. The cost to taxpayers for production of the, quote, Behind the Badge with MCSO, end quote, podcast, which Sheriff Todd K. Baxter declares his intent to be, quote, as transparent as possible with the public, end quote, and that's a lie. This is transparency right here. Every single one of these Freedom of Information Law documents is designed and written for transparency and also to expose what you are at the Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Office, Pembroke Town Court, and New York State Supreme Court, which is corrupt. This is compensatory time in the New York State Legislature when you work used to be 40-hour work week, 41st hour and beyond accumulates, and you can accumulate 400 hours, 500 hours, take that time off and go work on a campaign. So what happens when the employee works a 40 hours? Because there's different ways to do it. There is overtime with employees paid. There is time that allows that can be taken off in addition to vacation time. So how's it done? And your answer is, I should be arrested for demanding this of you. And look at him pointing that finger at me, Todd K. Baxter. He's so obnoxious in the way he talks to us. We should arrest him for asking us this, which is accountability at your office. There is no accountability because you're corrupt, Todd K. Baxter. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter allot compensatory time to employees that have worked beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees paid? It's as clear as it can be. If you are confused about this, then contact me and I will clarify it, or I'll write the language in a different way. But this is clear and concise. So what's the answer, you skinhead? You know why American citizens hate police. You're the embodiment, Todd K. Baxter, of why Americans hate the police. Freedom of Information Law. Does District Attorney Sandra Doorley allow compensatory time to employees that have worked time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not called vacation time when the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office employees paid? Perry Douglas, give this to Sandra Doorley and bring it to her and tell her to comply with what I'm demanding. And if you're confused, Perry Douglas, you could call me or email me because it's right on here. C. Chichester, JUL4, 813-648-4441. And tell me how you want to get me in front of one corrupt judge when no one from the district attorney's office has to talk, and then you can sentence me to jail where I'm not told what the jail sentence is. And I'm just going to language in there day after day and week after week. Personal financial disclosure of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. You know what I'm talking about. I will cite the part of state or federal law or both that compels you to sentence me, and you still refuse. I've not been able to find the language that I'm comfortable with to put on here because I'm researching that right now. But you know what I'm talking about. So send me a personal financial disclosure. Same thing with you, party switching diva. Personal financial disclosure of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Do you have speaking engagements, Sandra Doorley? I don't know about Todd Baxter. No, I believe he does. But I believe that you absolutely have speaking engagement. You're paid. You could be paid $5,000 or $10,000 for a speech. That's what I'm tempted to find out with this. Sandra Doorley, have you had a speaking engagement where you are paid $5,000 or $10,000 or any sum of money? What's the answer? It's as simple as it gets to answer that question. And you refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Personal financial disclosure of supervising judge, New York State Supreme Court, 7th Judicial District, that is Alex R. Renzi. Duke of New York, A#1 here, is also going to refuse. And I'm trying to enrage him. He's in there alone. You're forcing me in there alone where a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court, where there is no jury of 12. If someone would have asked me when I was at Wing Street Elementary School and I was 10 years old in Miss Sarenson's class, if she would have said to me, Chris, can a defendant in a courtroom go to jail if a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court? And me as 10 years old in a great Miss Aronson's class, I would say, that doesn't make sense, Miss Aronson, or something like that. You know, I'm not trying to be funny because I believe I would have said, that doesn't make sense. That's ridiculous. No, I don't get that. I'm 10 years old, but I still don't get that. Elementary school children know that prosecutors have to talk in court for any citizen to be delivered to jail. A prosecutor has never once talked in court because I've been delivered to jail 6 times. The personal financial disclosure of Penfield Town Judge Paul C. Metzler, $28,000. What a joke. Paul C. Metzler, put this in the mail, 620 Park Avenue, PNB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604, because I will tell the Office of Court Administration. I'll also contact Janet DeFiore in Albany about you and about that nauseating Star Chamber of Penfield Town Court, about what you have done to me, because the New York State Legislature, the Assembly and Senate needs to pass legislation to ban this monstrosity that is a bench trial. That's not a trial. It's just one defendant being declared guilty in Penfield Town Court for me and in New York State Supreme Court for me. Personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Judge James Mullen Jr. What's not to understand? How old are you? 70, right? 75? I don't even know, but you're in that vicinity. Do you understand the English language, James Mullen Jr.? How you discipline your employees over and over have now demanded this. The internal disciplinary records of documentation for employees at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has reprimanded, terminated, disciplined, and employment at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office. Reprimanded, terminated, or disciplined. And you want to exist where there's no accountability for you. You don't want to have a single citizen ask you a question about personnel at the sheriff's office, even though your employees violate the civil and constitutional rights of innocent citizens. You don't think you have to answer one damn question from any citizen in Monroe County. I'm not just any citizen, because I believe I know more about your office than the ordinary common citizen. How many citizens know your payroll like I know your payroll? We're on one page of your payroll. You have 12 employees that you pay $100,000 or more. How many citizens know that fact about your post of existence, Todd Baxter? The Internal Freedom of Information Law, the Internal Disciplinary Record of Documentation for employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that District Attorney Sandra Doorley is reprimanded, terminated, disciplinary employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Should you fire an assistant district attorney who doesn't talk to court as a defendant is delivered to jail? The answer is yes. If your answer is no, Sandra Doorley, and your answer is no, why? I can't even find out the names of these disgusting, sick human beings who should be disbarred. That's why I demand their names, so I can seek their disbarment, including your disbarment, Sandra Doorley. If you don't think that you can be disbarred, then you live in a delusional and psychotic 1984, Sandra Doorley. And you do live in a delusional and psychotic 1984, Sandra Doorley, because you have a conviction integrity unit. The name, salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter. It's as simple as it can be. What's the entry salary to? Because from the payroll, the last time I looked at it, I think there were about 15 names where the salary was approximately $45,000 or $50,000. That's what I'm also seeking to find out. What's the entry salary? A list of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office by length of employment, years to day, month, and year the employee is hired. I want to see how many employees you have that have been there 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You have, I believe, at least one employee that's been there 40 years. This is the old man. He's in the vicinity of 70 that I saw when I was at the jail. So it's as simple as it can be. Todd Baxter, do you have questions about this? About what I'm demanding here, the day, month, and year the employee is hired, the length of employment? Then contact me at 813-648-4441. What is the problem, you skinhead, buffoon, stooge? Are you watching me, Michael Rather, who's paid $0? Are you watching me, $34,000 Kathleen Miller? Are you watching me, $101,000 William Tadeo? Go and tell your corrupt, sick boss that this is what I'm demanding. Length of employment in years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. Because this is what I'm going to tell Thomas P. DiNapoli, that you're refusing. This is what I'm going to tell Attorney General Merrick Garland, that you're refusing. This is what I'm going to tell the Office of Governor Kathy Hochul, that you're refusing. Length of employment leads to corruption. And if you have these employees that have been around for 25 and 30 years, they can no longer do the job. Just like you, Todd Baxter. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. And what I'm going to do for you, Sandra Doorley, I'm going to write this in a 6-month period since January 1, 2018. And I'm going to compare the payrolls, if in fact I receive them, and I'm going to see how you deliver raises to your employees, and you refuse. This is also I'm going to tell Controller Thomas B. DiNapoli, who I hope to contact in the next 2 weeks, when I've already written these foils multiple times, where I'm saying send me the payroll, from example, January 1, 2018 until June 30th, 2018. And then I want the next payroll from July 1, 2018 until December 31, 2018. And then if I have those two payrolls for calendar year 2018, I can see how I deliver raises. You want to exist in secrecy. You don't want any accountability, because if the people of Monroe County know the full extent of what you're doing with taxpayer dollars, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and District Attorney Sandra Doorley, you cannot survive in office. You will have to resign. A list of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office by one, length of employment, years to day, month, and year the employee is hired. Again, this is what I'm going to tell Thomas P. DiNapoli. I know you're not going to answer me. And then I'm going to tell Thomas P. DiNapoli, I'm on YouTube here on this Google product. I'm saying to you what I'm demanding. I'm telling you beforehand, even before I wrote this, that I know you're not going to comply. You will tell Thomas P. DiNapoli you don't have to answer this because you're corrupt. You will tell Merrick Garland you don't have to answer this because you're corrupt. You'll tell Governor Kathy Hochul you don't have to answer this because you're corrupt. I've been writing this now for 18 months, these next two, about overtime, a time and a half. I didn't have overtime, time and a half while I was a public employee in Albany, Washington, D.C. But you have it. That's why you're refusing to answer. You have overtime, time and a half at the District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office. So how's it done? There's different ways to do overtime. There's different ways you could deliver more money to your employees. You tell me. Freedom of Information Law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half for unpaid beyond base salaries calculated at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd Baxter. Total cost of overtime, time and a half for unpaid beyond base salaries calculated at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. It's as clear as it can be. If there's confusion, then call me. If there's confusion, then write me. There are Freedom of Information Law documents here where your refusal to comply has repercussions and consequences that could possibly force you from office immediately, such as the total cost of overtime, time and a half, probably beyond a base house calculated at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office. This is why I say this, and I was pausing, searching for the right language sometimes, because sometimes I don't have the right language. I want to make sure I'm accurate. Because if you have an employee, Sandra Doorley, that's paid $100,000 to the District Attorney's Office, and then that employee is paid more money than you, Sandra Doorley, at $203,000, how is that possibly explained, and how do you remain in office? Do you have employees in the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office that are paid more money than you at $203,089 with overtime or time and a half? And what's the answer? Do you, Todd Baxter, have employees in the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office that are paid more money than you at $132,599 with overtime or time and a half? What's the answer? Sick days. Total number of, quote, sick days and total number of hours employees in the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter, accumulated by the number of sick days and number of hours. Again, I know you're not going to answer. This could possibly force your resignation. If you have no control whatsoever over your employees and they're calling in sick, what happens if you do have an employee that has lost 300 hours of work because of sick days and there's no terminal illness? There's nothing this employee's been diagnosed for. There are employees that have those legitimate illnesses and they deserve sympathy and they deserve help. And that's the way it should be from every good heart in the United States of America. And then there are the employees that are fleecing taxpayers. There's nothing wrong with them. And I believe that's the case, the District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office. The number of, quote, sick days and, quote, total number of hours employees at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra, have accumulated by one, the number of sick days and number of hours. Sandra, you've picked up the phone, and there's one of your co-workers on the phone, and your co-worker says to you, I can't make it in today, I'm sick, or words to that effect that communicates that employee's sick. And since you've been in the District Attorney's Office for 30 total years, I'm going to guess that you've had experience with an employee that's doing this over and over and over. Either where you're being told the employee can't make it in, there you are answering the phone about why the employee, or there you look at the email about why the employee can't come in. So how's this done? And you refuse to answer. You don't think that citizens of Monroe County have any rights whatsoever, any First Amendment right to demand these answers from you. I'm using language that is as clear and concise as I can conceive. And you're still going to refuse because you're corrupt. The number of sick days and total number of hours, the supervising Judge Alex Renzi, 7th Judicial District, New York State Supreme Court, is accumulated by the number of sick days and number of hours. He can just pick up the phone and postpone a trial, postpone the appearance of the defendant. He say, I'm not coming in. He has absolute control over his life, where he's only accountable to the voters, just like you, Todd Baxter, and you, Sandra Doorley. And that's why he does whatever he wants, and doing whatever he wants is why he's corrupt. Just like you, Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. These two fossils in here, Paul C. Metzer and James C. Mellon Jr., I don't know how old they are, but I believe they're right in the vicinity of 70. So Paul C. Metzer and James C. Mellon Jr., Freedom of Information, the total number of sick days, the total number of hours employees in Pemberton Town Court in Pemberton, New York have accumulated by one, the number of sick days, the number of hours. This is sexual harassment at Monmouth County Sheriff's Office and Monmouth County District Attorney's Office. I'm not going to explain what it is because I'm at 44 minutes on this YouTube. But you know what it is. So what's the answer? Are you breaking federal law? Are you violating state law? Cost taxpayers of Monmouth County Sheriff Todd Baxter expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Cost to taxpayers of Monmouth County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This year, I'm going to go to the Grievance Committee on East Avenue, 4th Judicial Department, about my complaint. That's going to be 1,000 pages long. And I'm going to detail over and over what's happened to me. Violence and silence has happened to me. I'm being violently attacked by the fanatics at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. I'm being sentenced to jail by the sociopaths at the Monroe County Attorney's Office without a prosecutor ever talking in court. Violence and silence is what I'm going to tell. 4th Judicial Department, Attorney Grievance Committee, Freedom of Information Law. The number of complaints written or filed by defendants about attorneys or employees at the Monroe County Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley with the 4th Judicial Department, Attorney Grievance Committee. How do your employees qualify with the weapon, Todd Baxter? And you refuse to answer. They can use that weapon on any innocent citizen at any time. And I believe your buffoons and stooges are not tested with the weapon. They qualify maybe once a year. It should be testing quarterly. And that's what I'm going to write in a new Freedom of Information Law. Not only am I asking you in general the basic marksmanship, but you know what I'm talking about. I will write if you have a quarterly test of marksmanship or how it's done. So how's it done? Freedom of Information Law. What is the basic marksmanship requirement for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? You, Todd K. Baxter, the last person at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office who should have a weapon. And this is a reason why. The $0 employee, the $0 freak. Freedom of Information Law. Day and year, Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter rehired Michael Rather after his 20-year career ended in January 2018 and sent the email and address to the address listed below the documentation signed by Sheriff Baxter to rehire Radler. Is he paid private money to go into the sheriff's office? Are you $0 for the last 5 years, Michael Rather? What's the answer? You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. This is a descent on my life with fanaticism that I never thought I'd be here in Rochester, New York, having to read this insane piece of paper. It's insane what I'm going to read. Because your employees, like $67,000 Shannon Meyer, are insane. A warrant for my arrest for walk through a parking lot, then you use either a device you will fix the 2025 Penfield Road, use the taxpayer dollars while using private technology on me. What's the answer, Todd Baxter? Because I've seen the images over and over. Freedom of Information. The cost of a surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and fixed to a building at 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Chichester at 26 Sanders Farm Drive. Walk through the parking lot next to the building, and that's the lunatic fringe, which I'm confident the United States Department of Justice, its employees will agree with. And that's it right there. It's a darkened picture, but I've showed it. Perhaps I'll hold up my phone and show it. I'll show the parking lot, and then I can have an up-close picture. The lunatic fringe again. I'm trying not to laugh. I vow when I come on here, I shouldn't be laughing because there are things that are so ludicrous and ridiculous that I will laugh, and I'm not going to do that. But this, I used to laugh at this. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'll try not to. Freedom of Information. The cost for photography session and photograph 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool, approved by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. I don't care if it's a private event. It's just tax dollars. Was $1 in taxpayer dollars, was $10 in taxpayer dollars, was $100 in taxpayer dollars spent for this because this was on your Facebook page and on your Monroe County Sheriff's Office page. So is it tax dollars? Doesn't matter if it's a private event. You were in your office, Todd Baxter, talking to your employees on the taxpayer dollar as a private event. Is this taxpayer dollars and you spend taxpayer dollars for it? Junkets and Rays, people. If you're sending rye fish to Atlanta, Georgia, you're sending your employees to other places in New York or out of New York. Like you going to Saratoga. Oh, excuse me, you going to Watkins Glen. And the Undersheriff's Training Conference was in Saratoga. Did you send your employees to that? I don't know, but I'm demanding if you did. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fish to attend the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia, February 3rd, 2019. Here he is. I hope this photograph can be in what is left of the media in Monroe County because the Democratic Chronicle is a joke, but I would love to see his product with this photograph in the Democratic Chronicle. And this tweet, I'm not going to read that tweet again because he's tweeting about it. He's telling people he's there. And here he is, you're going to the media and promoting him. Here he is with his dog. I'm going to write you Freedom of Information Law about your canine unit because I really am ambivalent at this point about the effectiveness of a dog in law enforcement operations. Can dogs, with their sense of smell, uncover evidence? I don't know. And if I would listen to a criminologist, perhaps a prominent criminologist like the late, great James Q. Wilson, if the late, great James Q. Wilson, in his writings, like he had his famous book, his seminal book on crime, has language in it that dogs really do assist law enforcement. Well, that's good enough for me, because there's no one with a brilliant mind like the late, great James Q. Wilson. But I don't know, and I'm tempted to find this out. So if you have a canine unit, which is taxpayer dollars, and it really is not accepted that dogs assist the police in investigations, then what are you spending money on a canine unit? Why does he need a canine unit? If I asked Ryan Fisher, if he was right here in front of me, I would say, what do you do every day with your canine Lola? And what is his answer? Because this just looks like Fun City for him. How does Ryan Fisher answer the question? What do you do on a daily basis with your canine Lola? And what is the specific law enforcement operation you're involved with your canine Lola? And how do you answer that question, Todd Baxter? You should be in New York always. It's a beautiful flag in New York. Excelsior on it. It's ever higher. This is not ever higher where he is. This hate symbol, which was not changed in 2003. So, what'd you pay for him to be in Atlanta, Georgia, which is not in Rochester, New York? Documentation of voucher, other documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, purchased an airline ticket and a hotel room from Mount County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher, traveled to Atlanta, Georgia for Super Bowl on February 3rd, 2019. Ridiculous, ludicrous. That's one less employee you have here for the crime and violence descending on Rochester, New York, and Monroe County. He's in Atlanta, Georgia, having a good time. The cost for the care and feeding of Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher's German Shepherd Lola during his trip to Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. Physical training standards. You have none. Freedom of information law. What are the physical training standards and requirements of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, and if there's a standard requirement, doesn't include running, push-ups, or sit-ups. I attended the 10-day air assault school at the 101st Airborne Division, and it was a thrill. And final day, the 10th day, is the 10-mile rucksack march. And also on that day is the 5th rappel out of the helicopter. And I was only 20 years old. Think about things in your life that really fill you up and give you joy. And that 10 days was really such a terrific. And I'm not talking about this for narcissism, because there was the obstacle course in air assault school, which was tougher than I thought it was going to be. And the reason why I cite this and your physical training standards, if every single employee of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office was at the obstacle course for Campbell, for air assault school, I believe, I'm guessing now, 90% of them would not be able to start and finish the way it's supposed to be. If you saw the movie Full Metal Jacket, where Vincent D'Onofrio was going up to the top of this big wall and he can't make it, and he's being screamed at by the drill sergeant, there was a big wall like that you had to go up and come down. Your employees could not go up that wall and come down the obstacle course at air assault school. And there's the 33-foot tower where you have to go head first. They couldn't do that either. And the final day is the 10-mile rucksack march, which you can run or walk. Your employees, no way. I believe that 90% of your employees will be able to finish the 10-mile rucksack march at air assault school. And why is that, Todd Baxter? Because they're not in shape. That's why. Your employees couldn't even pass the basic minimum of the PT test, which used to be 300 points, and now it's tougher. I don't think your employees, I'll have to guess, 75% of your employees could not do 40 push-ups and 40 sit-ups in a 2-minute period each. And you're placing your employees' lives in jeopardy, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, with their weight problems, because they cannot protect themselves from violent criminals, such as violent criminals at Monroe County Jail. What's going on at the Lord of the Flies that is Monroe County Jail? What's the state of violence at Monroe County Jail? You refuse to answer. You don't want anybody to know about violent criminal acts at Monroe County Jail, because then that's going to confirm that you don't have any control over your jail. And you don't have any control over your jail, Sheriff Todd Baxter, because I was attacked at Monroe County Jail by a Monroe County Jail office employee. Freedom of information law. A number of criminal acts or criminal actions where an inmate appeared in court for a criminal charge where the criminal act or charge occurred at Monroe County Jail from January 1, 2022 to December 20, 2022, which is today. How many criminal acts were at the jail where the inmate is in jail serving time and then has another court of appearance because of a crime in jail? You know the answer, District Attorney Sandra, and you refuse to answer. You know the answer, Perry Duckles, and you refuse to answer. Freedom of information law. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer to every arrest for the accountability, facts, circumstances of the arrest? The answer is no. I'm violently attacked at Penfield Public Library by Siemens. I don't think that Siemens is my arresting officer or the other psychopath at Siemens because you don't have an arresting officer. Your 5 vehicles and 10 plus employees arrested me. The pharmacy entrance to Wegmans where one of your employees ran at me, knocked me down, where there are 10 witnesses to this violent crime upon me by your employees, including your female employee with the Marine-style haircut and tattoos. There's no arresting officer for me there who can be accountable and can be asked this question. A citizen was attacked by a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee at Wegmans. The arresting officer is accountable. So what happened and explain what happened. The violence upon an innocent citizen at Wegmans. The arresting officer can be accountable for such violence. And you want to shield your employees by not having an arresting officer. Because you're the blue wall silence. Name in charge of every unit of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter of Monroe County Jail from January 2018 to December 20, 2022. This is a 4-year period, 4+ year period. What's the answer? You do not separate your violent inmates from the nonviolent inmates, and why? And this is what I'm going to tell the Commission on Correction. I'm having breakfast, lunch, and dinner next to murderers and rapists and arsonists and violent criminals in Monroe County when a prosecutor never talked to court. Freedom of information law. Do you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, hire employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office based on race or gender? It's so simple to answer, and you refuse to answer because the answer has to be yes, given the fact that you're a Democrat. Do you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, hire employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office based on race or gender? You refuse to answer because your answer has to be yes, Sandra Doorley, because you're a Democrat. And Democrats are obsessed about race and gender. Give me these names. How many times do I have to demand this? I will tell United States Attorney for Western District of New York, Trinity Ross, and Rochester and Buffalo, Attorney General Merrick Garland, the Office of Governor Kathy Hochul, that you're refusing. Freedom of information law. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester with John P. Lomenzo Jr. in Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Total silence. And is that Julie Hahn, who's now in Monroe County Court? Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester with Paul C. Metz in Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Total silence. This is the 5'2" 3-piece suit boy that Regina Harper said to me, quote, the prosecutor's not backing down. The prosecutor's not backing down. And the prosecutor doesn't know a damn thing about my concocted charge of fiction. He just knows he can get together with $28,000 skinhead widow, Paul C. Metz, and declare me guilty. So what's his name? I walked up to him in Penfield Town Court. I said to him, you're going to stand there in total silence? And it was total silence. Document freedom of information law. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester in New York State Supreme Court for Alex R. Renzi. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? There were 2 females standing behind me. When he said to me, I was finished and done, which is not true because I come here to YouTube and Psychopaths Incorporated, the Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office, are thinking about how to force me back at the court, where all it takes is one judge. And I've never heard Miranda. Have you read the 1966 United States Supreme Court decision, Miranda versus Arizona? Because what happened to Ernesto Miranda is historic because it compelled the fanatical cops to read criminal suspects their rights, whether innocent or guilty. And I've never heard Miranda. So, Penfield Town Court listed defense, Penfield Town Court for Paul C. Metzer. Everybody's guilty. And how's that explain, Paul C. Metzer? You don't acquit anyone. You don't know how to acquit anyone. You don't care about acquitting anyone. You don't give a damn about guilt or innocence because you want to have that power and control over a citizen's life because you're obsessed with power and control. List defense, Penfield Town Court for James Finley Jr. List defendants, Penfield Town Court before John P. Lomenzo Jr. I don't care that it's retired. Send it to me. Duke of New York, A number 1 here, is different than Paul C. Metz with $28,000 and James Finley Jr. $34,000 because he does preside over real trials, including murder trials, where he has to instruct the jury, where he has to keep the prosecutor and defense attorney within the parameters of acceptable and legal courtroom behavior. These 2 hacks, Paul C. Metz and James Finley Jr., know anything about a trial. There is no trial in Penfield Town Court. This is a real courtroom, New York State Supreme Court. But I'm in there without a jury, without a prosecutor ever talking to court. And I have prosecutors assigned to him for my appearances. So what are their names? List of defendants in New York State Supreme Court for supervising Judge Alex Renzi's $208,000 salary. Daniel Dird was released in Penn Court by John P. Lorenzo Jr., and he said to the Democratic Chronicle he was released because of defective documents. Where are those defective documents, Paul C. Mentor and James P. Lorenzo Jr.? Send them to 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. I'll tell the employees of the United States Department of Justice that John P. Lorenzo Jr. in Penn Court released an accused child rapist because of, quote, defective documents. You have them in your possession at Penn Court, and you're refusing to send them to me. To cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. This will include your trip to Watkins Glen. What are you doing in Watkins Glen? Disgrace. To cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. How many times have you been out of Rochester or Monroe County, you pathetic diva? Cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Penn Court, Paul C. Mentor, James P. Lorenzo Jr., and John P. Lorenzo Jr. Simple as can be. To cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County by supervising judge, New York State Supreme Court, Alex Renzi. I saw Duke of New York A#1 here at the Magistrates Association, where it was extremely alarming, his appearance and the way he was having, from what I could tell online, a good time. That's why I said to him in New York State Supreme Court, are you an alcoholic, Alex? Because when I go into court, I'm trying to enrage these hacks like him. Because I don't conform to the normal behavior of defendant. Because I'm an innocent man. The cost of trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Did the Monroe County Sheriff's Office expend taxpayer dollars for 1, a hotel, 2, a plane ticket, 3, per diem? How is this explained to Control Thomas McDaplin? If one of his auditors calls you and says, Sheriff Baxter, we've heard from a citizen about a trip by you and your employees to Watkins Glen, New York. And how much was it? Are you going to tell the Control's Office you're not going to provide any information about this cost? Because it costs money. And what was the price tag for taxpayers in Monroe County for you to be in Watkins Glen? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. And who would you go with? Your groupies, your Kool-Aid drinkers, your flunkies. Total number of employees that escorted Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to his trip to Watkins Glen. And this is the District Attorneys Association summer conference joke. The cost of taxpayers of District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended in Saratoga Springs, New York, the District Attorneys Association Stadium summer conference. I don't know if you went, but did you go? Yes or no? And it's going to be the stone cold silence of corruption and indifference. Final one here. The undersheriffs had a conference. So did you go? The answer is nobody went, and that's the answer. And if you refuse to answer, I'm going to think and conclude that you did send your employees here. Freedom of information. The cost of taxpayers of Saratoga Springs, New York, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter approved the expenditure of tax dollars to attend the Unsheriff's Trading Conference at the Gideon Putnam Hotel in Saratoga Springs. That's it right there. The freedom of information law. I just read, and now I'm at 102 minutes, 61. And as corruption is predictable, 0. You're going to comply with. And this, again, corruption requires repetition. What I just read here, every single one, all 61, went via UPS. When I was at Park Avenue today, that's where the UPS store is, went to Trinity Ross, the United States Attorney in Rochester. Sandra Doorley, District Attorney. Todd K. Baxter, Sheriff. Mark Phillips, Monroe County Public Defender. Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court. Paul C. Metzler, Penn Court. And Trinity Ross in Buffalo. She is in Buffalo. She's not in Rochester, from what I can tell online, from what I read online. So, everything I just read, you've received 58 of these documents because I added 3, and it's going to be up to 70 soon. But 58 of them, this is Psychopaths Incorporated. It's all your emails. And if I can email these to you today, then I'll do it. Or tonight, then I'll do it. If not, I'll have to wait until tomorrow when I go to the library. So you got it. You got everything on December 20th. And I've sent to you previously on November 28th. You got these too. So every employee of the district attorney's office can walk through that parking lot without an arrest warrant. Every employee of the sheriff's office can walk through that parking lot without an arrest warrant. And that's the lunatic fringe. The sickness of you, Todd Baxter. People love their dogs with their heart and soul. You come into my residence to demand my dog. So this check I was given, $61.39 when I was violently attacked by Siemens Penfield Public Library. How's that explained? Again, my little guy coming to my residence to seize my dog. I'm a broken record about this one. The fanatical cops showing up to the home of an innocent citizen, demand his dog. When that innocent citizen, me, has walked him for 7 years and 4,000 times. So, comply with every single Freedom of Information law because you will receive it via UPS and you will refuse to comply with all 61. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Judge Alex Renzi, Paul C. Metro, and James C. Milley Jr. in Penfield Town Court because you're corrupt.